What is up, nerds? It's me, your buddy pal, HeyArcher. Welcome back to Nerd Affiliated, but more specifically, welcome back to HeyArcher, episode 149 on Nerd Affiliated. Today, exciting episode. They're all exciting. This one's a little extra exciting because we have the newest member of the Nerd Affiliated family, Sal, jumping on so we could talk about Rambling with Anthony and his segment, The Snap, talk about what makes him a nerd, all that fun stuff. So, as always, sit back, relax, pour yourself a little drink, enjoy the show, and intro. All right, nerds, without further ado, we have to my left, Mr. Sal in the house. Welcome, sir. We're not only matching on haircut, but we're also matching in the V-neck dark gray shirt today. We must read the same memo.
Love it. We could almost make this, you don't show Anthony, but we can make this a bald guy channel if you want to do that.
Yeah. We'll kick him out until he shaves his hair, and then he can come back. But welcome. I'm so happy to have you on the show.
Cool, thank you.
At this moment in time, people will have already seen your first segment on Rambling with Anthony. So in case somebody has not watched that yet, why don't you give us a little intro to Sal? What was your first intro into nerdness? What do you like? All that fun stuff.
So, in terms of comic books, I got an older cousin, and he always got me into that kind of stuff in the 90s. It's like 15, 20 years older than me.
Yep.
And I always had like the single trades. I remember having a Jack Flag trade. I remember having Ben Reilly #1, which I probably should have held on to.
Yeah.
But I didn't really take off into comic books and nerddom until like later. I'm a big gamer. Always been into video games, PlayStation, Nintendo, and that stuff. But
I was talking about how I was listening to the CEO of Xbox, and he was saying that the only reason it still goes to this day is Halo and Xbox Live. If not for that, the two of those coming out when they did, Xbox wouldn't exist right now.
It's essentially a Halo machine. That's actually why I got really big into Destiny, because I've had a PS2, 3, 4, and getting into Destiny was like my Halo because I wasn't able to play it anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the last Halo I played was Reach on the 360, which is delicious.
I was thinking that was the same one I played, but now I think ODST was the one. That was the one where you played as non-Master Chief Spartans, right? Was that ODST?
Yeah, you were a normal Marine.
Yeah. And then Reach, was that back to Master Chief?
Reach was the events immediately before the first Halo. So you make a custom character, and you go through that story, and the fall of Reach is a planet. The fall of Reach is what leads into the first Halo game.
Got it. So now, are you Xbox or are you PlayStation?
PlayStation.
Got it. I feel like that happened to a lot of us. We just jumped over.
When it comes to exclusive, it's like we said, it's a Halo machine.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah.
It's a shame because they have a lot of. They have Gears of War and they have opportunity. I don't know why they can't do it.
Yeah. And for me, it was the Red Ring of Death. Like after getting that twice, I was like, I'm all set here.
Oh, woof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you get around to the second time, then it's like, what am I doing?
It's funny on the last HeyArcher when Anthony was on, we're talking about how like Ghostbusters like kind of shows our age because we're like pretty much just as old as the movie at this point. But like talking about the Red Ring also I think shows age because I feel like most kids now would have no idea what we're talking about when we mention the Red Ring of Death.
Oh yeah, that's I just got done watching watching that episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a lot, I believe you said it, I was a lot like you, where my first intro into Ghostbusters was the real Ghostbusters animated TV.
Yeah.
The real Ghostbusters animated TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I picked a lot of it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back and I watched the movies later.
Yeah. And at that point too, I feel like Ghostbusters was like ending its run. Like as it was approaching the real Ghostbusters, the movies had already been out for a long time. And if I'm getting my times lined up, that's now rolling into Marvel. Like the Fox shows are starting to like blow Ghostbusters out of the water. Like all those old, Transformers, G.I. Joe, those are old school now. Cause then you got your X-Men, your Spider-Man, and then even the Batman animated series. Yeah.
And that shows our age because we grew up watching it as it came out. We saw Batman the animated series, we saw Superman the animated series, we saw Justice League and Justice League Unlimited start.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that puts us at a very important time period.
Yeah.
We actually touch on that on the Snap video.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. There's a part towards the end where I give like a little nerd recap.
Mm-hmm.
And how I don't want to, well, you said it already aired. So
yeah.
How episode 1, 2, and 3 was important to us generationally.
Right.
We were in high school.
Right.
That's our Star Wars.
Right. That's true. That's true. And actually I am recalling that now because it's that same way with the sequel trilogy, right? Like kids like don't find issue with the sequel trilogy the way that we do because this is their intro. Like that, their first time sitting in the theater to watch Star Wars is Force Awakens, Last Jedi. Like, and for a lot of them, it was their first Star Wars seeing that stuff. So it's a matter of like, what was your entry point? Usually most times that's like your favorite, whatever the entry point was, time-stamped Nexus event, if you would.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why they won't have a problem with like Han and Luke and Leia biting it.
Yeah.
Because it's not important.
Yeah. It's not for us. Not at that point. Yeah. Which is crazy. It's crazy. But speaking of, Marvel, DC, all that stuff. So what was that first show or movie that like gripped you into like, okay, I'm all in on this stuff? Because you mentioned the comic books, the Rick Flag, Ben Reilly, but what was that TV show or movie that like just grabbed you and it was a wrap from there?
So it has to do with where I grew up. Mm-hmm. Born and raised in New York City. And I was 20 years old. I was going to school in Manhattan. And I saw a guy selling paperback trades on a blanket in the street.
Oh, yeah.
And I picked up Civil War Iron Man, the paperback trade.
Yeah.
Now, as a kid, from the 90s, they were all kind of goofy. There were the Rob Liefeld, the pouches everywhere, the big guns, the giant muscles.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm used to seeing. And it was kind of silly, Mm-hmm. But now I pick up Civil War Iron Man and I am blown away. So growing up in New York City, being a teenager, post 9/11, reading Civil War, it resonated with me differently than people across the country. And seeing how much depth Iron Man had.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, you grew up with the Iron Man TV show also, the Iron Man TV show, the Fantastic Four, the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah. And
this was so different.
Yeah.
He's the invincible Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
But the armor is invincible, the man is broken.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember reading it and just being like, oh my God, this is adult material. Yeah, it's cartoons, but it's adult material.
Yeah.
And that was the rabbit hole.
Yeah. We probably bought comics from the same person in 42nd Street probably or something like that. But yeah. But it's true. Like that era of Civil War was my intro temporarily back to trades and paperback. Yeah. I remember a couple years prior to that, they announced the Ultimate series and they were like, oh, we're restarting it all. And I was like, this is perfect. Like, this is what I need because love the TV shows, love the movies. Actually, the movies at that point were just Blade, and I think the original X-Men movies. But
yeah, I think about 2000.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, all right, starting from scratch. I went on, I told my mom I had to use the internet. So I plugged in the 56K, went on marvel.com and had them coming to my house I think every month was that point. The Ultimate series came in its folder, was reading it. And then we got to Civil War and I was like, this is, like you said, it took you to that next tier. And I was like, this is like amazing. This is awesome. And then to me, that also somehow led to me ending my comic book run because I was like, there's so many trades I got to buy, so many comics I got to buy, so many things to read. And like it spiraled out. And for some reason, I stopped after that.
Yeah. And I never got into picking up individual issues because I ended up reading back catalog stuff. So a lot of the stuff I picked up was paperback trades.
Yeah. So did you find issue with Civil War, the movie, because of being a big fan of Civil War, the comic? Because I know, like, for me, I was hyped when they announced it. And then the movie was just completely different. So was that a pain point for you watching, it have the same name, but different execution?
I'm okay with them taking liberties because you have to. There are certain things that aren't going to work. Like WandaVision, right? House of M was not going to fly the way House of M happened in the comics.
Right. So
they needed to do something. And WandaVision is essentially House of M.
Right.
So now when it comes to Civil War, I was all right with it. I mean, I still think I have to go back and probably watch it a third and fourth time because a lot of the stuff with Zemo is kind of confusing.
Right.
Like how he managed to, it's that typical movie stuff where he managed to perfectly get himself in
everything
to all the right spots at all the right times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a little annoying. But other than that, it was, I liked it. It was good ending to the Captain America series.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, to me, Winter Soldier, Anthony and I talk about it all the time. That's best one. I mean,
that's one of the best action movies ever. If you take off the costumes, you don't make him Captain America. You make it like a Jason Bourne movie.
Yeah.
That movie is fantastic. It doesn't make a difference that they're comic book stuff.
And that's what I needed out of Black Widow. Like, I was so hyped for Black Widow because I was like, we could finally get back to that espionage, ground level, no superpowers, just action movie that they happen to wear costumes in. Yeah. And it to me, and then I'll get your thoughts on it. To me, it just was like, I feel like Winter Soldier now it was a one and done. Like after watching Black Widow, I'm like, this is so Disney-fied at this point. Like we're never going to get that back. But what were your thoughts on that?
Like what you were saying, seeing her get into car accidents and thrown out of windows, and they've never touched on the Infinity Serum.
Right.
So none of that exists.
Yeah.
The Nick Fury Infinity Serum doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The Russian Infinity Serum doesn't exist.
Yeah.
They loosely touch on it. They never commit to it, but they loosely touch on it that Winter Soldier has something.
Right.
But they never really come out and say it.
And could you quickly just clarify what that is for anybody who may not know?
So after Erskine created the Vita Rays to give Captain America his powers, everyone else tried to copy. Right. The Germans try to copy, the Russians try to copy. And the Russian formula was in line with the Infinity Serum. The Infinity Serum is also something that Nick Fury got, because in the comics, he's the same guy from the Howling Commandos in the 40s. So he's supposed to be the same soldier fighting in World War II, all the way to current timeline. So it keeps him, it doesn't necessarily make him
immortal,
super strong. Yeah, like a pinch stronger. He's aged a lot slower.
Right.
But Romanoff is supposed to have it too.
Yes. Yeah. And for her, it's like heightened abilities, but nothing. It's your standard, because you're a superhero, you could heal faster than the average person, run faster than the average person, but nothing to that extent where, you're like, all right, I'm going to fall out of a building. And because I'm bouncing on stuff, I didn't die because of that. Like that shouldn't be the case with that serum.
There's actually a great scene in Civil War the comics, not the movie,
Right.
where Captain America is lumped up. He's in a chair. He's got his leg in a cast. He's got his arm in a sling. He's all bloody. The suit's all ripped up, and he's still giving orders. So even Cap, it's going to take a while for him to get back.
Yeah.
He doesn't just bounce back right away.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to put that image here for anybody who's listening on the podcast.
So you know exactly the scene I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, back then reading it, I didn't think twice, because I'm like, yeah, he's a human. Like, he's not, he has heightened strength and all that stuff, but he's still human. He still bleeds. So it was normal. But in watching what they do now, at a certain point, I'm like, I forget that. I'm like, oh wait, they're not just, they are just humans. They're not like bulletproof, essentially.
Me and Anthony have a joke about Civil War, is that there's that one scene with pre-crisis Cap where he pulls the helicopter back to the landing pad.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's wildly out of control. That's not okay. You've never established that before. It's wild.
Yeah, it didn't. But I think even with the movies, like, with some things you give it a pass, but that one, I remember it was like, this is kind of crazy, but you know what? It's a cool shot. It's the Spider-Man pulling, the boats together type of scenario, that shot. But on the Marvel front, just because I recently saw it, and I'm gonna do a 2-minute review. Everybody who listens to the show, you guys are the hardcore of nerds, so I know you'll watch the 2-minute review when it comes out. But I'm gonna do a 2-minute review on Shang-Chi, and that was another one that, to me, I was let down a lot for a number of reasons, but one of them was they're just so crazy now. Like, they're everything's got to be these Dragon Ball Z level fighting sky monsters and whatever, that even now watching the Spider-Man trailer today, it did nothing for me. So I'm like, I need them to just give us something, and maybe it's Hawkeye, but give us something where it's like the power levels are just brought back down. We just have good story, ground level action scenes, humans that bleed and get hurt, that kind of thing.
That's actually, it's one of the things I've gotten exhausting about the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And I'm all for, Cthulhu level, cosmic horror type action. Right? Big fan of Green Lantern, so I'm big fan of Sinestro Corps War and Darkest Night.
Right.
But there's a place for that.
Yeah.
There's a place for, after you got done reading the comic, which is going to tie into my Man of Steel video, because I'm coming for you. There's a certain point where it's like, okay, there's been a lot of damage. How does the human population even come back? And I know it's a comic book and it's fiction, but where you ground half of it and then you don't ground the other half. Yeah. It's actually one of my big problems. I love Iron Man. I don't know if I made that clear, but I love the comic book Iron Man prior to like Extremis. Like, the Extremis story was good, but prior to Extremis, where again, the armor's invincible, the man is weak. In the movies, they just, like, the first one is excellent. But in the first one, the guy, like, he's a butcher. The guy kills like 40 people. Yeah. He pulls a guy through a wall. He hits a guy. He hits a guy who's wearing almost no armor. He hits him with a repulsor in the chest. All because he took his toys. Right. Granted, they're terrorists, but they still only because they took his toys. And it's crazy. We can't ground it a little bit. I don't have the same problem with Winter Soldier, like with the opening of Winter Soldier. Cap kills about a dozen guys in the opening of Winter Soldier. I always forget that. I don't have a problem with that. No, he's a soldier. And in Civil War, right? Is Civil War the one that opens up with them in Wakanda? Like Somalia.
Like
Somalia or something.
Yeah. And they're killing the terrorists. And I'm like, oh, that's right. They use guns in Marvel and like shoot people and kill them. Even though they were laughing as they're doing it, which was, again, the Disneyfication of Marvel, but
it makes them look like sociopaths.
It does. It does. They're like, yeah, so what about dinner? Pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
So are you excited for Spider-Man at all? Since, we talk about this, everything's got to be larger than life at this point.
It's a lot. And I feel like if the second movie was toned down a little bit more, because they went kind of over top with the second movie.
Yeah.
So if the second movie was toned down and this is their magnum opus and that's how they want to end it, okay. But you did it last time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And then there was Civil War. And there was Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
And there was Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
It's exhausting.
Yeah. People like to your point, human civilization should be wiped out at this juncture.
Yeah.
Because we've already destroyed every city 5 times at this point.
Yeah.
And I feel like what was nice about that, like 6 months post Endgame, is you had every storyline referencing the snap. Like, yeah, people are starting to come back together and people are trying to put their lives together and all that. But like now that's all forgotten. Now it's just like business as usual. Like that didn't even happen. And it's like the universe again is destroying. I mean, skyscrapers getting ripped out of the ground. Like, I'm just like, we should be living in Mad Max world at this point. Like, that's where we should be.
I am very intimate with the surrounding neighborhood of Grand Central Station in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And when you watch Avengers 2012, there's the population density of that area is pretty tight.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people getting hurt.
Yeah.
So it's,
and that's the charm of like a Rogue One, right? Like Rogue One's one of my favorite Star Wars movies because you see the humans in this, like the people who don't have powers, the person who does get hurt, the person, the red shirt in the Star Trek episode. That's who you see in Rogue One. And to your point with Avengers, like you saw Cap helping people, being Captain America. The people who are hurt during all this, what are they experiencing and all of it? And I feel like that's all now lost. It's just explosions everywhere.
Yeah, the human element. That's what made part of that movie. They do the whole fish out of water, man at a time, Captain America thing. And it worked. It worked when you got a giant rage monster punching aliens out of the sky. It works when you got a man in a pseudo armor, when you got a Norse god and they're flying around, they're zapping everything. And what's Cap doing?
Yeah, on the ground.
Cap's giving aid. He's on the ground. He's trying to evac people. He knows he's outclassed.
Yeah.
But you don't see that anymore.
No, not at all. Not at all. So you mentioned also before we started recording that you're a Star Wars fan. And you mentioned that you also enjoy Rogue One.
Mm-hmm.
Are you also into the animated universe of Star Wars?
I am severely behind. So
that's right. You guys referenced that.
I try to get into Clone Wars, and sometimes life gets in the way, so it's hard. Part of the problem with the first season or 2 of Clone Wars is part of it's too kiddie.
Yes.
I feel like there's a bunch of stuff you can skip over that has a more serious tone. Anything with Jar Jar is impossible to watch.
Yes.
And I started watching Rebels, and Anthony yelled at me. So he told me, go back and watch Clone Wars, then you can watch Rebels.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could piece it together. He goes, no. You have to stop what you're doing and go back and watch the Clone Wars before you finish Rebels.
Yeah.
But I've never seen the anime one. I'm caught up on Visions. I liked Visions a lot.
Good.
I like the Kurosawa episode, the first one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought that was excellent. It was done really well.
Yeah.
Some of the other anime ones on Visions were a little too over the top. I have the same problem with the Star Wars video games because you get a guy like Starkiller.
Yeah.
And he's pulling the Star Destroyer out of the sky.
Yeah.
So the power levels of the Force users are all over the place. where
Accurate.
where you have like Dooku in the second movie in the Attack of the Clones. He's one of the most powerful Force users at that time. He's struggling throwing these giant tanks, right? But then you see Starkiller pulling a Star Destroyer out of the sky that's flying away from him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes you watch Phantom, and Obi-Wan has a hard time pulling the lightsaber. The lightsaber on the floor, and it's like shaking at the ending scene right before he kills Maul.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all over the place.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and some of the episodes of Visions, those were my least favorite. The Elder was really good. I believe it's Ninth Jedi, where it's all it's more grounded. It's anime style, but it's definitely more grounded. The Duel, the Kurosawa one I was talking about, those were my favorites.
Yeah. I'm just going to... All right, so I'm going to make sure to share this in the show notes. I'm sending it to you right now. This is like... It's funny. I watch a lot of my old content, and I'm like, it's freaking terrible. But I did a How Clone Wars saved episode 3 for me video. I just sent it to you. And I think it's in that video I have my required watch list of Clone Wars, because one of the gems to Clone Wars is that it's not completely in chronological order. Like, what you could do is essentially watch... My suggestion's always, as you go through the descriptions, watch everything that is like your Obi-Wan, your Anakin, your Maul. Like, you could watch any storyline that has those 3 things, get through the show, and then go back and then watch the Ahsoka, the clone stuff, you know, or even just say, I'm going to watch it start to finish. Because to your point, very kiddie to start. Like, that show...
Season 1 was rough to get through.
Yeah, there's
Season
another...
1 I had a really hard time.
Which I think was that other show I always reference when I talk about this. It might have been Justice League, where I'm like, out of the gate, it's like, okay, we're here to sell toys, you know, get kids into this, all that jazz. And then there's that turning point where they're like, okay, it's grown-ass men watching the show. Like, we can up the ante on this. And as you get to like your season, like the end of season 2, season 3, they start like straight up murdering people on screen. And you're like, oh, like, shit.
There's that scene where Superman winds up and punches Darkseid in the face.
Yeah.
And he says, now I finally have a chance. You could take the shot.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the end of the show too. That's the second to, I think the second to last season, if I remember. Yeah. I've always wondered what it's like to not hold back. Yeah. And he makes that sonic boom when he punches him in the face.
Amazing. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even that episode where it's the final episode of that season. The Amanda Waller and Terry McGinnis episode. Like, I mean,
I don't remember that one.
Oh, dude, you got to watch that one.
I've seen most of it. I just don't remember it.
That one, by far, one of the best Batman.
Oh, it's the one with Static Shock. With Static.
No.
Time traveling.
No. Also good. That's a good arc. When they're time traveling. No. This one is Terry McGinnis as an adult. It's the unofficial series finale episode of Batman Beyond, because Batman Beyond kind of just ended and it didn't have like an actual ending. So it's Terry McGinnis as an adult, and he breaks into Amanda Waller's house. She's like, you know, Bruce Wayne level, like old, shaking. And he's like, essentially the opening line is like, why didn't you tell me about my past? And they explain the actual real becoming of Terry McGinnis, how he actually met Bruce Wayne. Like, it wasn't actually an accident. Like, things were planned.
Is he Batman? Is he Batman in that scene?
No, he breaks in as a human. And what's cool is the Terry McGinnis parts are all black and white. It's like, oh man, it's to me, it's one of the best moments. And it's also, she talks about the day like Batman died, almost like the day like he was winding down when she noticed that he was a man, you know, he couldn't do crazy things anymore. Fantastic episode.
I'll check it out.
Yeah. But then in Clone Wars, I mean, same thing. It gets to that point where, you know, I don't know what you haven't seen, but like there's main characters that, I mean, lightsaber to the chest, like on screen. And you're like, not a droid, like an actual humanoid. And that series, I tell you, it off to such a rough start, and it ends wonderfully.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Check it out.
That was my Batman rant.
Cool.
So any other shows coming up that you're like really, really hyped for or excited for, or
you mentioned on one of your other episodes you finally got into Superman and Lois?
Yeah, I'm only one episode in and I'm very impressed.
I'm 4 episodes in, and that's the Superman we needed. You know, that's the best part about him, is when he struggles, when, you know, yeah, he could punch the planet in half, but he has a hard time with his teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we needed.
That scene when he this is not really a spoiler to anybody, but that scene when he flies back to see his mom when he gets the phone call, I was like, wow, I actually emotionally felt bad for Superman, and that's never happened. But he also did what we all would do if we got that call, and you had that ability.
Oh yeah.
Wild. Absolutely wild.
It's written so well. And I don't like the CW stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Green Arrow fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the first season of Green Arrow a lot. I felt okay about the second season of Green Arrow.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Green Arrow, the first season heavily takes from Mike Grell from his run in the 80s.
Mm.
And it was supposed to be, this guy's been a joke for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And no more fancy arrows, no more boxing gloves.
Arrows. Yeah.
Yeah, just, you know, we're going to go out, we're going to have him use daggers and have him use a bow. And that run is really good. If you can find it, I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So it starts with that. And I heard that part of it was they wanted to make, Berlanti wanted to make a Batman show. And they told him no. They told him, it's Nolan's world, it's what Nolan wants.
Mm.
If he's doing Batman, you got to find something else, kid.
Yeah.
So he picks Green Arrow, and he does this Mike Grell run from the 80s. And it was fantastic. And then it got like silly. Yeah. And then you tie the Flash stuff into it, and it got worse.
Yeah.
And I've never been a fan of Smallville because that was too much like Seventh Heaven, Party at 5 stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
That I'm not into. You know, I was like 15, 16 at that time. All I wanted to do was fight and play sports. Yeah. So I don't want to sit and watch, you know, Superman cuddle on a lane.
Yeah.
On a lang. So coming into Superman and Lois, I was like, I got HBO Max. I'll give it a shot. You know, I got an hour, and I was really surprised. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Really surprised.
Yeah. Give I say this all the time, and I've been a terrible fan because I haven't gotten past the first episode of season 2. But Stargirl, like what Stargirl does is it takes elements of the teen drama part, you know, because she's in high school, so you kind of have to, but somehow makes it more mature and not as campy and not as silly, and things progress in the story where I'm like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Like they're, you know, the big issue with Smallville, the big issue with Titans is like, how are their secret identities here? Like, it's pretty obvious who everybody is. In Smallville, my biggest, the day Smallville ended for me was season 2, episode 1, when at the end of season 1, Lana gets pulled into the Twister, and he's all Lana, and he runs into the Twister, and you're like, wow, like now he, you know, he's gonna, and they kind of like allude that he flew into it, but you know, it's like now he's gonna be Superman. She's gonna know who he is. Like now we're gonna get some progression. And he rips the door off the car. She sees him, and then he takes her out. she knocks her head on something, amnesia. She forgot about the whole thing. Didn't even know she was in a twister. And I was like, so, all right, so that's what we're doing here. We're all set. We're all set.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But Stargirl, even though it has the CW like stench on it, it's removed. It's far removed. It doesn't like Superman and Lois Clark. Yeah.
Superman and Lois.
It doesn't visually look CW, which I like.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So I think they're starting to understand like what works and doesn't work anymore, and that CW stuff. It's done.
Well, Barry Allen's the fastest man alive, right? I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, I mean,
they'll tell you next week, and they'll tell you the week after.
There's somebody else. You got to run faster. Actually, why don't we talk about that as we end the episode? And again, thank you, Sal, for being here. Again, everybody who's listening, if you made this far, leave that awesome review on your podcast platform. If you're on YouTube, thumbs up, subscribe if you've not done so already. But the Flash movie, Anthony and I talked about it. I'm pretty sure I can't find a reason to be excited for it because I'm like, okay, is it just going to be, you got to run faster, Barry? Because of CW, I'm kind of burnt out on that. So are you at all hyped for this movie?
I'm excited to see what they're going to do. The same way I was excited with like Dawn of Justice and Justice League, and like excited enough that I'm going to see it.
Right.
Because I need closure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I see it opening day. Maybe I wait for home video.
Yeah.
But look at what they got. Look at what they got behind them, right? You got 1984, right? Which was terrible. You got Dawn of Justice, which was bad. Justice League, which was bad. Yeah, the Snyder Cut cleaned it up, but this is what the theatrical releases they were putting out. So it's almost the deck is kind of stacked against it. But then you have the Suicide Squad, which I saw recently and I loved it.
Yeah, good movie.
So it's almost like, man, are they going to do it right?
Yeah.
Are they going to screw around? It could really go either way, and I don't know if I can commit to that.
I mean, this is their time. If DC, right now, Marvel is going to Marvel. People already know. They know what to expect when you go into a Marvel movie at this point. You know what to expect when you see, a new characters being revealed. I think this is DC's moment in time to surpass Marvel on the theatrical side. TV show.
Marvel's on a low.
They are very much so. And I think this is that moment. I mean, right now, I think the Batman is what can change it. That's going to make or break it because that comes out first. The Batman does. Yeah, the Batman. If that home runs it, DC's number one for a while. But if it doesn't, then we're kind of, we're just stuck with what we got. And I think, you can put Keaton on every poster. If the Batman's terrible, I think people are kind of over it.
Yeah. It's hard because they did so great with the Nolan movies.
Yeah.
And it's always it's hit, miss, hit, miss. So now you're hoping this one knocks it out of the park. They need it. They need to win.
They need Snyder out. Snyder needs to be there. Snyder needs to be there, I think, for visual aesthetic.
Yes.
Costume design. But editing and putting it together, the storyline, putting it together, he can't be running it.
I don't particularly like him as an author.
Right.
So Sucker Punch, I loved. But what's Sucker Punch? That's silly. It's a vignette. It's 4 or 5 action sequences that are completely not connected.
Yeah.
I've recently saw Army of the Dead. That story needed a lot of work.
Yeah.
Action was great.
Yeah.
They don't tell you anything about what happened beforehand.
No.
There's an outbreak. Get into Vegas.
Yeah.
So it's essentially Ocean's 11 with zombies.
Right.
And so it looks great. It's just it's written so bad. And it's not even so bad. It's just the quality to his direction doesn't match the quality of his writing.
No. It doesn't. So it doesn't make sense.
He did some really interesting stuff. I don't want to spoil it because I want to really go at you with Anthony. He did some interesting stuff with Man of Steel.
Oh, right? For sure.
And there's parts in Man of Steel where he's really he hits the really down to earth stuff. Not the entire movie, but he hits the down to earth stuff with Clark.
Mm.
And then once you start punching people around Smallville, it kind of falls off a little bit. Mm. And then Dawn of Justice was just a disaster. And I don't know how much of that was the studio, but even the writing was bad. Yeah. So there's a lot of really sharp cuts in that movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really cut off audio. It jumps from scene to scene. Everything's got to flow. Everything's got to move together. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't have to say, wait a second, hold on, where are we?
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to pause and go back.
Yeah.
The transition should be seamless.
Yeah.
So now, there's parts where you're in Gotham and then you're in Metropolis, and it's like, how did we get here?
And apparently they're across the water from each other the whole time.
Okay. I guess that's how Bruce could drive to work.
Yeah. But BVS, the only one I love, BVS director's cut. Did that make your list of passable or?
The word I like to use is serviceable. It went from unwatchable to I can sit through this.
Yeah.
And I've watched them both. So I've seen both versions.
Yeah.
So it went from almost unwatchable because I watched it to passable.
Yeah.
With the director's cut.
No, for sure.
They did too much. Going back to Spider-Man, with the new trailer. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
But you're giving me too much. I don't need all that. There's no reason why you should have gave me Doomsday in the trailer. I should have been surprised by that. A trailer that did that really great was Deadpool. The Juggernaut was not in a single piece of promotional material.
Right.
And blew my mind. I'm a huge Juggernaut fan.
Right. Rogue One. You didn't know Vader was in that movie.
No.
Yeah.
And you didn't know what part he was going to play. He could have been a passing nod.
Yeah.
But he played a bigger role than what we expected.
Yeah. There was something else recently. I wish I could remember the movie that it was all the trailers were the first 15 minutes of the movie. Every bit of the trailer only came from that first 15. And then as you watched the movie, everything else was just I've never seen this before. I wish I could remember what it was. But there needs to be more of that.
Oh, you mean so not that they showed too much of the first 15. But that's where the bulk of it came from. Yeah.
Every piece of the trailer, no matter what trailer you saw, only came from the first 15 minutes of the movie. So you couldn't sit in the theater and be okay, when are they going to get to this part? This thing has not happened yet, or this character has not shown up yet, or that kind of thing.
Doomsday and Wonder Woman should have never been showed in Dawn of Justice.
I would have been fine with that.
That should have not have been showed in any of the trailers. First off, that shouldn't have been in the movie.
Yeah.
It should have ended with the fight, and maybe you do Dawn of Justice Part 2. 1 and 2. Kind of like Kill Bill, where it's Part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But to show them in the trailers, a huge disservice to the movie.
Yeah. Because there was nothing else. There was no other surprise.
No.
There was no.
Yeah, they're gonna punch it out. He's probably gonna use kryptonite because he's not gonna stand up to him on his own.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what? We just need motive.
Yeah.
And the ending of Man of Steel was the motive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild.
So your only surprise you ruined in the first trailer.
Yeah. It's the movie that set it off for me, where I was like, okay, I now see this trend, and every time this happens, it's gonna be bad. Mortal Kombat, they were like, we're gonna release the first 10 minutes of the movie as a featurette. And I was like, that right there, it's now official. If they release a segment of the movie, that's probably the best part of the movie. And there's nothing else to look forward to. And sure enough, Wonder Woman 1984, they're like, hey guys, check out the first 15 minutes. And it's her on the mascara, the trial bullshit.
I hate that scene. I think that's the worst. I think that's one of the worst scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it ruins everything from the first movie.
All of it.
Because the first movie, she's struggling and she's trying to make it.
As an adult.
You know, she's got to prove it.
Yeah.
Now she's a kid and she's smoking these adults.
Yeah. Without even trying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder, it's funny. I wonder sometimes if we're asking too much. We're like, hey, you people who get paid to write storylines, like, is it possible that you could watch the previous movie before you write the second movie? Like, I think we're asking too much at a certain point. We're crazy.
Well, if I can do a shameless plug.
There you go.
On our Snap video, one of the points that I make is all I want a good narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Visual effects will follow. Superstars will follow. You don't even need superstars.
No.
And just give me a good narrative. Make the story cohesive. Make it have feeling. Don't just stuff into my face.
Yeah.
Like I've recently saw Shazam for the first time, and I liked it. And besides, what's his name, Zachary Levi and Mark Strong, there's no real big names in that movie.
No.
So you have the big bad and the hero.
Yeah.
But the story had a good feel to it. It felt natural. If you were a 12-year-old with superpowers, it's not perfect. It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. 100%.
So between that and the Suicide Squad, I'm more confident about the Flash and the Batman than what I would have been.
That's fair. And nobody ever, Shazam, when people talk DC movies, never comes up because it's one of those. It's a sleeper. It's one that you didn't care about most likely going into it, and then you watch it, and it's a great first movie because they didn't blow the load by throwing Black Adam into it, and now I'm actually hyped for Black Adam, and I want to see what they end up doing between the two.
Well, I wasn't hyped about Black Adam when I first saw the trailer because I didn't know. I saw the teaser.
Right.
And then I watched your show with Anthony.
Yeah.
And they mentioned the
Justice Society.
It's the intro with Pierce Brosnan.
Yes, that's
and
what
then
got me.
It was like that Joe Rogan picture where they're at the table, they're all falling over each other.
Yeah.
So at first I'm like, okay, I'm familiar with Billy Batson. I'm familiar with Black Adam. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then to see that and to see them sit down with Pierce Brosnan and he's playing Dr. Fate and they're going to do Hale Carter, right? They're going to do Hawkman.
Mm-hmm.
So now it makes me think the movie definitely takes place in two separate timelines.
Yeah. No, and to your big name comment before, like, to me, The Rock is the most irrelevant part of the excitement of that movie.
Black Adam is the least exciting part of that movie for me.
Yes, 100%. But it's it's all of it.
Yeah. You're doing Dr. Fate and Hawkman. So that tells me two things. That tells me Dr. Fate is not immortal, right?
Right.
But the helmet is possessed.
Right.
But Carter's immortal. It's Hawkman. Right. He's reincarnated. So you could have an ancient hero with the Dr. Fate helmet, fight him in the past with Hawkman, and it could be Hawkman's story.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Into Black Adam.
That's a good point.
And it's like, this is great.
Yeah.
You can make this movie take place 3,000 years ago, and then when he returns, you bring it to now.
Yeah. do it way better than Shang-Chi did, because Shang-Chi, it was just
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh man, you gotta watch it. You know what? Here's the thing. Is it a terrible movie? No. But there's not a single plot point of that movie that you don't see coming as a comic book fan. There's not one thing that you're like, oh, that was that. Actually, there's one thing that's surprising, but not in a good way. I was like, really? But give it a shot.
One of the things I don't like about it is my daughter likes to watch Raya.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 3-year-old, and she likes to watch Raya the Last Dragon. And Aquafina plays one of the main characters.
Oh, really? She's in that too? Wow.
Yeah, and I thought her voice was her playing the dragon character. And then I started watching clips for Shang-Chi, and I'm like, whoa, that's her everyday speaking voice.
That's her everyday voice, yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
That's tough to sit through.
She's all right in the movie. I gotta admit. I didn't hate her in the movie. She's very blatantly the comic relief / the human element there to help explain things. But she wasn't the worst part of the movie. It's not even that there's a worst part of the movie. It's just, it's so safe and predictable that it's like, let's try.
I think that's worse. That's worse than experimenting and failing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's one of the things I really hated about Force Awakens. Force Awakens was so safe, besides killing Han Solo. But it was so safe. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you have between extended lore and legends and all this stuff and the games, and you have so much that you could work with.
Yeah.
And this is how safe you took it? You gave me A New Hope?
Yeah. Yeah. With updated graphics.
Yeah, and A New Hope is my favorite one. So it's to watch it, it's like, man, you didn't even try.
No.
You didn't even try.
No. That's what happens. But I look forward to your snap of the sequel trilogy. All the snap segments you do over at Rambling with Anthony. So Sal, it's been a pleasure. Any last comments, or actually why don't you plug your show? Plug for the audience.
Cool. So I'm Sal. I'm going to try to be on with Anthony as often as possible. I'm going to be on with our buddy pal Archer. And, an idea I pitched to Anthony was an idea for something called the Snap, where we take your favorite pieces of media, we find a nexus point, and we snap. And we make it balanced, like all things should be. And one of the things is, it's not about making it a happy ending. It's not about necessarily fixing it, but it's about saying, hey, we could have done things differently. What if we went down the rabbit hole? I feel like a lot of times you see with these what if videos, they start and stop immediately where the change is. This is rewriting timelines. This is trying to go back as far as we can and making the changes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to hop on with Anthony as often as I can to do one of those. If not, I'll just be on rambles with him and, give my nerd insight. But if you guys you got something you want to talk about? You got something you got a nexus point, or you got something you want me to find a nexus point? Yeah, put it down in the comments. I'm willing to entertain it.
There you go. Love it. You can find them over at the Nerd Affiliated channel on YouTube, here at nerdaffiliated.net, everywhere Nerd Affiliated. As always, thank you for being here, both to you, Sal, and to the audience. HeyArcher Live every Thursday at 8 p.m. on the Nerd Affiliated channel. If you want to see some toy hunting, speaking of Star Wars, we got some Darth Revan figures to go through here.
Yeah.
All the toy hunting happens over at HeyArcher on YouTube. So like, comment, subscribe, leave a good review, all that fun stuff. And we'll talk to all you nerds in the next video. Peace.